The woman suddenly pulled open the door, her overwhelming anger freezing right away. A black wall with a cold metallic sheen stood outside the door, made up of countless irregular square blocks, looking very eerie. Her first thought was that her husband had played a trick to stop her from leaving, but when she turned around, she saw the man also slapping the wall in shock, his face filled with disbelief. The man hurried to the monitoring screen by the door, and pressed the switch, with trembling fingers, but the screen only showed a dazzling display of snow noise, with no valid images at all. Just as he was confused, his wife's urgent call came from the living room. He turned around and walked away, not noticing a fleeting faint blue light suddenly flash across the black wall behind him. But in the living room, the woman was staring at the window, completely blocked by the black wall. Barely able to believe what she saw, they rammed the wall with their bodies, but the black wall remained motionless, as if it were integrated with the space. What made them even more desperate was that their mobile phones had also lost signal. Matt and Anna held their phones and searched for a signal in the room. He suddenly noticed that, when the phone was close to the black wall, it would generate a certain intensity of electromagnetic interference. Anna, who was an architect, observed the wall carefully and found that these blocks not only had a special material, but their irregular arrangement and uneven sizes also violated all architectural common sense. She took out an electric drill from the tool cabinet. The sharp drill bit spun wildly on the wall, but didn't even leave a white mark. Matt immediately stepped forward to help, and the two of them together pressed the electric drill against the wall. The drill bit quickly turned red due to excessive friction, but the strange black wall still remained intact. Unwilling to give up, Matt turned to try drilling through the ordinary wall by the door. When the drill bit finally penetrated the concrete, they despaired to find that the black barrier still stood behind it. It seemed that the whole staircase had been blocked. They frantically drilled holes in the walls of each room, needing the same result every time. The mysterious black wall wrapped the whole building tightly, as if it were a living creature. This phenomenon that violated physical common sense almost made Anna's mind shut down. How could it be possible to completely seal an whole building with blocks overnight? At this point, a fierce quarrel suddenly came from the next door. The two exchanged a glance, immediately picked up the electric drill, and drilled in the direction of the sound. When a small hole was drilled in the wall, they were shocked to find that the young couple next door was also trapped in their own room. The male neighbor Ike was a tenant who had just moved in a few days ago. He was yelling crazily and swearing to settle accounts with the landlord. It was obvious that they had also tried various ways to escape, but all ended in failure. At this point, Matt finally noticed that no water was coming out of the faucets anywhere in the room. The two of them sank into even deeper despair. Matt, who worked as a game designer, forced himself to cheer up and suggested trying all possible methods, just like solving a puzzle game. This sentence completely broke Anna's mental defense, and she burst into hysterical sobs. It turned out that the trigger for her decision to leave her husband was actually his obsession with game development, which made him neglect their home. She was supposed to leave yesterday, but unexpectedly, she got trapped here by this strange black wall. Just as the atmosphere dropped to freezing point, Matt suddenly noticed a metal block stuck to the surface of the black wall. He tentatively held a spoon close to the wall, and sure enough, he felt a strong suction force. The two immediately collected all the metal items in the room and stuck them to the wall to test. After repeated attempts, they found that the magnetic force was strongest at 4 specific positions on the black wall. Anna concentrated all the metal items on these 4 points. To their horror, these metal objects began to tremble eerily. Matt realized the danger in an instant and suddenly pushed Anna to the ground. Almost at the same moment, dozens of metal objects shot out from the wall, leaving several bloodstains on Matt's back. The two stared at the black wall in terror, completely giving up the idea of breaking through by force. They could only pray that the wall would disappear on its own the next day. Suddenly, a fierce commotion came from next door, followed by the shrill scream of their female neighbor Linda, and then everything fell into dead silence. The two hurriedly widened the hole in the wall. Matt picked up a baseball bat, while Anna gripped her pepper spray tightly. After passing through the hole, they found bloodstains on the floor. Following the traces to the bedroom, they found Linda lying on the ground. Just as they were about to retreat the same way they came, Ike suddenly rushed out and pinned Matt to the ground. In the nick of time, Anna's pepper spray hit his eyes, but then Matt knocked Ike down with the bat. But there was a twist. Linda, who had seemed on the verge of death, suddenly pounced on her boyfriend. After a chaotic explanation, the two finally understood that the blood on the floor was from Ike. It turned out that this couple were both drug addicts. Under the influence of drugs, Linda was disoriented. She tried to hit her head against the wall, but accidentally injured her husband, causing the situation to spiral out of control. To ensure safety, Matt bound the dazed Ike's hands with tape, and decided to wait until he was fully conscious before making further plans. Matt turned and walked to the neighbor's storage room, hoping to find useful tools. When he accidentally tapped the power switch, a strange ripple suddenly appeared on the surface of the black wall behind him. but it vanished in the blink of an eye. While rummaging through items, Anna accidentally found a hidden miniature camera. Matt, on the other hand, found a fire axe. He swung it with all his strength at the black wall, but still failed to leave a mark. The noise woke Ike up. He looked around in confusion, seemingly having no memory of his earlier frantic behavior at all. Anna suddenly had a brainstorm. Since they couldn't break through the wall, maybe they could try a different direction. She recalled the information she had checked before moving into this apartment. This old building, first built in 1897, was renovated during World War II. There should be an air raid shelter underground, and such shelters were often connected to the city's subway system. This might be their only chance to escape. Following Anna's suggestion, Matt started chopping the floor with the fire axe. Linda muttered that this was like a twisted escape room game. Ike, but still stubbornly believed the landlord was up to something. After all, the whole building was the landlord's private property. Thanks to Matt's efforts, a hole was finally smashed in the floor, but the space below was pitch black. With no response at all, Matt twisted bed sheets into a rope, preparing to climb down and investigate. As soon as he landed, an old man wearing an oxygen mask suddenly appeared. He pointed a gun directly at Matt, and shouted sharply for him to get back up, and not touch his supplies. No matter how the others explained that, they just wanted to pass through to the basement, the old man remained unmoved. The muzzle of the gun was pressed tightly against Matt's head. In the nick of time, a young girl walked out of the inner room, and gently persuaded her grandfather, the old man, but warned grimly, "Don't think they're still neighbors now. 3 days later, they might kill for a sip of water." Persuaded by his granddaughter, the old man finally agreed to join their escape plan. As Ike swung the axe to continue breaking through the floor, the girl accidentally revealed a key piece of information. At 4 a.m., everything was still normal when she got up to go to the bathroom, but after dawn, the black wall had mysteriously blocked all exits. Matt's eyes were suddenly drawn to the fragments of a smoke detector that had fallen from the ceiling. He picked up the wreckage and examined it carefully, only to be shocked to find a miniature camera hidden inside. He immediately questioned the old man if he knew about it, and the old man looked confused, saying that all these detectors were installed by the landlord. This discovery made Matt alert right away. He rushed to the kitchen, and knocked down the detector on the ceiling with a broom. Sure enough, there was also a camera embedded inside it. The neighbors suddenly became emotional, cursing through gritted teeth, believing that this must be the landlord, imitating some perverted reality TV game. Those wealthy bastards were watching their struggles through the cameras, and the landlord was the administrator of this cruel game. Anna suddenly remembered that the landlord lived next door to the old man, so she suggested going to confront the landlord. They joined forces to break through the kitchen wall, and got into the landlord's house, only to find the room eerily silent. In the corner of the living room, they found the landlord's body leaning against the wall, and his left arm was missing. What was even more strange was that the missing arm wasn't at the scene. Matt picked up the landlord's phone from the ground and found that there were only a few photos of the black wall in the album, with no other clues. The landlord's death plunged everyone into deeper panic. Linda trembled as she put forward a terrifying guess. Maybe they weren't in the real world at all, but trapped in a virtual program similar to the Matrix. Anna accidentally glanced at the headline of the newspaper on the table. A violent explosion had happened at the port of Hamburg the previous day, but Matt immediately pointed out that the port was too far from the apartment to affect this place. Just as everyone was in chaos, the floor they had chiseled open suddenly collapsed. The four of them fell into the lower level unexpectedly. A strange man who introduced himself as Yuri appeared in front of them, explaining that he wasn't a resident, but just here to visit his friend Anton. When he heard that everyone planned to escape through the air raid shelter, Yuri looked serious and put forward a completely different view. This black wall might be a kind of protective device. There could be a biochemical contamination outbreak outside, and the high-tech black wall was set up just to isolate the danger. Anna asked where Anton was, and Yuri led them to the bedroom in silence. Anton, who had stopped breathing, was lying on the bed. Yuri explained sadly that Anton had suddenly collapsed and died after approaching the black wall that morning, most likely because his pacemaker was interfered with. This statement suddenly reminded Matt of the electromagnetic interference that had happened when his phone was near the black wall, and he couldn't help but agree with Yuri's speculation. As everyone continued to break through the floor downward, the girl accidentally found several pieces of paper scattered on the table, covered with complex formulas. Those obscure numbers and symbols seemed to be used for some kind of mysterious calculation. Yuri walked over quickly, saying that those were all useless drafts, and after the girl left, he quickly crumpled the papers into a ball. After unremitting efforts, everyone finally opened a passage to the basement. They groped their way along the damp corridor, and finally arrived at the door of the air raid shelter. when the iron seal was broken, and the heavy iron door of the air raid shelter was pushed open, Yuri listened to the desperate roars of the people below, and a strange smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It turned out that there was still a black wall behind the iron door. Anna looked at the wall in front of her in disbelief. She couldn't understand why this strange black wall would also appear 10 meters underground. Ike completely broke down, picked up the axe and hacked at the wall frantically, the sound of metal collision deafening in the enclosed space. Matt hurried forward to stop him, fearing that he would damage this only tool. In the chaos, the old man raised his gun and pressed it against the back of Ike's head, barely gaining control of the situation. But just when everyone thought the crisis was temporarily over, Ike suddenly snatched the old man's pistol and fired several shots at the black wall. The scene that followed terrified everyone. The bullets hovered eerily a few centimeters away from the wall, and the warheads trembled violently with a buzzing sound. Matt suddenly remembered the previous tragedy, where metal objects were reflected, and shouted for everyone to lie down. Sure enough, the next second the bullets reflected back at the same speed, but the elderly old man reacted a little slower. The reflected bullet penetrated his chest, making him the first victim of the escape team. Ike knelt on the ground, pulling his hair in remorse. He had never expected this strange black wall to be able to reflect bullets. The escape plan failed again, and despair weighed on everyone's heart like the black wall. Matt forced himself to calm down. His professionalism as a game designer made him realize that he must collect clues like solving a game level. He proposed going back to the landlord's room to look for building renovation records or monitoring data. Maybe they could find some clues. When the girl was rummaging through the trash can in Anton's room, a business card printed with Nano Defense Company caught her attention. Yuri stood in the shadows, claiming to know nothing about Anton's work. But a more crucial discovery was a crumpled sketch, which accurately depicted the structure of the black wall. The positions of the 4 red-marked squares exactly matched the 4 points with the strongest magnetic field in Anna's apartment. In the depths of the drawer, they also found a laptop and a mobile phone with cracked screens. Yuri explained that this was caused by Anton's outburst in despair. The girl found a piece of paper with a password written on it in the trash can. Guessing it might be the password to open the black wall, Yuri excitedly opposed the attempt, insisting that the black wall was a protective barrier, and that opening it would let deadly radiation pour in. His paranoia made Anna feel suspicious. On the other side, Matt and the others searched the landlord's room thoroughly but found nothing. Just as they were about to give up, Matt noticed that the room seemed smaller than his own home. He tapped carefully along the wall, and indeed, found a hollow interlayer. While everyone was worried about not finding the entrance, Ike found a 10-digit password device in the drawer. Faced with millions of possible combinations, Matt had a brainstorm. He fetched flour from the kitchen and sprinkled it on the buttons. The numbers that had been pressed frequently gradually became visible. Now they only needed to try the 24 permutations of these 4 digits. Linda stumbled to call Anna over. After several attempts, Matt finally cracked the password, and the door of the secret room slowly opened. What came into view was a fully equipped monitoring room, with dozens of screens displaying real-time private images of every room in the whole building. Only then did everyone suddenly realize that the landlord was a total creep who couldn't stop peeping while they were focused on checking the monitors. No one noticed that Yuri's expression suddenly turned grim, and he quietly left the room. Matt retrieved the surveillance footage from last night. The video showed that the black wall had appeared out of thin air in an instant. When he slowed down the playback speed to the maximum, an even more shocking scene appeared. The seemingly indestructible black wall was actually formed by the condensation of some strange black smoke. At the same time, the girl who stayed in Anton's room stared at the peaceful body on the bed, always feeling that the red scarf was out of place with the deceased's clothes, so she untied the scarf and was shocked to find that Anton's neck was covered with purple finger marks, clear evidence that he had been strangled to death. Just as she was in shock, Yuri's figure appeared behind her. In the monitoring room, Matt and the others just happened to pull up the footage from Anton's room. The video clearly showed that Anton didn't faint in the room as Yuri had claimed. Instead, he walked to the door and operated something. As the phone's flashlight flickered, the light from the staircase actually penetrated the black wall and shone in. He clearly knew how to open the black wall. Everyone turned around to ask, only to realize Yuri had long since disappeared. Ike rushed out to look for him at once. When he arrived at Anton's room, the room was terrifyingly quiet. Pushing the door open, he saw Yuri throwing a stack of documents into a burning trash can, while the girl had already collapsed beside Anton's bed. With no sign of breathing, Yuri turned around. With a strange calm on his face, he claimed he had already warned the girl not to meddle in other people's business, and once again emphasized that the black wall was a barrier to protect them. On the monitoring screen, Matt saw the whole process of Yuri strangling Anton with his own eyes. He grabbed a pistol and rushed out the door. When he arrived at the scene, Ike was engaged in a fierce fight with Yuri. After a tough struggle, the two finally controlled Yuri, considering that he might hold the key information to open the black wall. they decided to knock him unconscious and tie him to a chair. Anna picked up the not yet fully burned paper pages from the ground. Under the chart edges, several groups of strange symbols were visible. She suddenly realized that the weirdness of this black wall lay not only in its existence, but more in its structure. Ordinarily, building bricks are of uniform specification and arranged in order, but every brick of the wall in front of them had a different shape, like some kind of carefully designed code arrangement. After taking the broken paper, Matt found that it was marked with lines of varying lengths, and suspected this might be Morse code, or some kind of interval code. Anna took out Anton's business card that she had found earlier. He was a programmer at Epsilon Nano Defense Company. What was even more coincidental was that the company's headquarters was located in the Hamburg port area, where the fire had happened the previous day. Yuri woke up under the stimulation. Facing everyone's questioning, he hoarsely explained that this black wall was an ultimate defense system to resist nuclear, biological, and chemical attacks, and its activation meant that a war might have already broken out outside. Anna immediately raised a question. Why would Anton risk opening the black wall? Yuri's eyes flickered for a moment. He admitted that Anton thought the system had malfunctioned due to the port explosion, but he firmly believed the outside world had been contaminated by nuclear radiation, so he had stopped Anton and killed this traitor. Even though Ike's fists fell like raindrops, Yuri refused to say another word. Everyone went back to the landlord's secret room filled with monitoring screens, and carefully replayed the video clips of Anton before he was killed. In the footage, Anton stared intently at the computer screen, his fingers typing rapidly on the keyboard for a full 3 hours. Matt watched this clip repeatedly, and a bold guess took shape in his mind. Anton was most likely writing a program that could control the black wall. This guess was confirmed after they found the phone smashed by Yuri. Matt carefully picked up the phone with the cracked screen, and used the tools he carried to remove the back panel. When he connected the phone's storage chip to his own device, a special section of code caught his attention. This wasn't an ordinary numeric password, but a sophisticated optical recognition system. Matt suddenly realized Anton hadn't designed a traditional password. Instead, he had transformed the phone into a key, and that mysterious black wall was an intelligent door that could only be opened with a specific light screen. Matt recalled a key detail from the surveillance footage. When Anton operated his phone, the light flickered a few times in a regular pattern, and then the light from the staircase penetrated the black wall and shone through. This discovery was a revelation to him. Light is essentially a form of electromagnetic wave, and it was likely the key to opening the wall. After some effort, Matt successfully repaired Anton's program and imported it into his own phone. When he launched the program and scanned the black wall, four faint square areas indeed appeared on the screen, exactly corresponding to the 4 points with the strongest magnetic field they had discovered earlier. Matt took a deep breath and activated the 4 virtual buttons in a specific order. As the phone's flashlight flickered rhythmically, an incredible scene unfolded. The surface of the once rock-solid black wall began to ripple, like a pool of black water being stirred. Linda mustered up the courage and slowly reached her finger toward the rippling black wall. To her horror, her fingertip felt as if it had dipped into a pool of thick black liquid, gently wrapped by the soft wall. Emboldened, she stretched her whole arm in, and felt waves of warm air coming from inside the wall. It felt as if, as long as she mustered up the courage to cross this barrier, she would regain her freedom. Her expression suddenly froze. She felt something inside the wall touch her palm. She tried to pull her arm back in panic, only to find that the black wall was generating a strong suction force. Matt and Anna immediately stepped forward to grab her body, but the invisible force was stronger than they had imagined. The woman's screams echoed through the corridor. In the blink of an eye, half of her body had been swallowed into the black wall. Anna noticed an even more terrifying detail. The area around the black wall was resolidifying. At a visible speed, everyone pulled with all their strength, but could only watch as the woman's body was cut off. As the wall solidified, Ike knelt in a pool of blood, his trembling hands holding the half-body of his fiancée. They had originally agreed to register their marriage once they escaped here, but now they were separated by life and death. In the next room, Yuri let out a maniacal laugh when he heard the commotion. This laugh shattered Ike's last shred of sanity. He picked up a gun, rushed into the room, and fired several shots at Yuri. When the smoke cleared, Ike turned to Matt and Anna, his eyes filled with deep despair. With another gunshot, only 2 members of the escape team remained. Despite the painful sacrifices, Matt and Anna still sat with their grief, but kept working on the program Anton left behind. They discovered a key pattern. When the 4 invisible buttons were pressed, each button would trigger the flashlight to flash a specific number of times, and the combination of the number of flashes seemed to be the password to open the black wall. Anna suddenly had a brainstorm. The surveillance footage in the landlord's secret room had completely recorded Anton's operations before his death. The two immediately went back to the monitoring room, pulled up the footage of Anton before he was killed, and analyzed it frame by frame. By repeatedly replaying the flash sequence when Anton operated his phone, they finally confirmed the correct order to trigger the buttons. Just as Matt and Anna were preparing for their final attempt, Yuri unexpectedly stood up unsteadily and started an attack on Matt. Anna stepped back in panic, accidentally lost her balance, and fell into the dark hole leading to the basement. Matt climbed up despite the severe pain, and kicked Yuri down the hole with one foot. He didn't have time to check his injuries. He immediately pulled the injured Anna, and ran deep into the air raid shelter. When they reached the black wall, at the end of the air raid shelter, Matt pressed his body against the door panel, and urged Anna to operate the phone quickly. Anna's trembling fingers tapped rapidly on the screen. The surface of the black wall began to fluctuate violently, like boiling black smoke. At this point, Yuri broke through the door and pinned Matt to the ground. Matt used his last strength to tell Anna to run. Anna looked at the black wall, which was gradually turning into mist. She suddenly turned around, swung the fire axe, and knocked Yuri down completely. The two supported each other and walked through the churning black mist, finally reaching the outside world. But the scene in front of them froze them in place right away. Not only the building they lived in, but the whole city as far as the eye could see, was engulfed by the same black walls. They found a motorcycle that could still start, and raced toward the port. Intermittent emergency broadcasts came from the radio. A fire at Epsilon Nano Defense Company had caused a major malfunction, triggering the activation of the secret nano defense system, and the military had begun search and rescue operations. This is where the story ends. The film break opens with a nano black wall that swallows an apartment like liquid metal. It blocks doors and windows, cuts off signals, and crushes modern life into a cage of despair right away. But the suspense laid out in the first half of the film soon falls into a logical quagmire. The trapped residents are unusually calm. The couple next door only cares about getting a refund for their rent and taking drugs, while the grandparent and grandchild downstairs ask no questions about their desperate situation. All of this is seriously disconnected from real survival anxiety. Death scenes such as the landlord having his hands cut off, and Linda being cut in half, could have intensified the horror atmosphere, but due to hasty shots and vague explanations, they are reduced to mere visual stimulation, and the audience even has to piece together the causes of death afterwards. The most confusing parts are, why the wall cuts off water but not electricity, why the villain doesn't die after being shot, and the deeper reason for the nanowall's malfunction. All of these are deliberately left unaddressed, reduced to empty foreshadowing for a sequel, depriving the story of basic respect for a complete narrative loop. Despite the plot flaws, the film still shows strengths in stylistic expression and human nature portrayal. The cinematography continues the German-style cold aesthetic. Ruined scenes in rainy tones and symmetrical compositions of empty corridors bring the dystopian atmosphere to life, filling every inch of space with survival anxiety. Brick is just like the nanowall it portrays. It has a sleek, tech-savvy exterior, but also unfilled cracks inside. It wastes an excellent concept, but also leaves behind memorable insights into human nature and stylistic marks. For audiences who prefer cold, suspenseful stories and can tolerate narrative flaws, this film is worth watching. But for those expecting a complete story, it's more like an unfinished puzzle game, where the answer may forever remain in the empty promise of waiting for the sequel. If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.